Well, good evening, everybody. As promised, it's Wednesday. We have a new episode of Holotheatre. As always, I'm Dan Tartaglione, also known as D Tartag1. Joining me, as you can see, are a plethora of individuals. They're all wearing their fancy polos, looking all sharp and everything, except for one. I'm not going to say which one, but I'm going to say one. Are the advocates. So, really quick, you guys want to go around and introduce yourself? We'll go from left to right. So, starting with Mr. R2D2 there.
Is that me?
That is you.
I can't tell what your left is. I'm Chris Kelly. I'm the design advocate.
Next is the man to my right. So this is my right. The man with the epic beard.
Is that me?
That is you.
I'm Chris Schoenthal, and I am the tournament advocate.
Okay, now let's go to the second row, starting with the Philly fan.
Yeah, I'm Jared Napolitano, and I'm a marketing advocate.
And in the middle,
Matt Carulli, the multimedia and special projects advocate.
and that just leaves two more individuals. One of them is, everybody should know who this is.
No. I'm Scott Lingro. I'm just one of the advocates.
Just one of the advocates. And last but not least, unfortunately, he's only audio only today.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. And I am Greg Zinn, the rules advocate.
Okay, so yeah, we are missing one advocate. Keith Brown unfortunately had a scheduling conflict, so he is not with us tonight, but we'll more than make up for that. So we had an interesting show today. Again, we're gonna talk about the advocates. I know all of them. I asked a lot of people to come up with some questions to ask the advocates. Say about, just some questions and answers. We're going to start with that. But the first thing I'd like to do is open up some transparency. Like I know that there is the organizational chart right now, and I know a lot of the advocates, it's pretty cut and dry. But what do you guys actually do for your positions? Like, I know everybody says a rules advocate, but there's a lot more than just rules that you guys do. And design, you do more than just say, oh, I'm just going to put out V cards so that we can play this awesome and amazing game. So what do you guys do, really?
This feels like the meeting with the Bobs from Office Space. What is it?
I've never. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, we've only okay. So, Chris, we've never had you on, and we know that you're the tournament director. And a lot of people who know who you are from running the tournaments. But this is the first time, like, many people might actually know you, because there are people who only play on GEMP.
No, that's not true. I've been on once before. I think it was with Jerry, though.
But those are the before times. We don't talk about the before times.
I'll start. So I think I have like kind of the most ambiguous title with multimedia and special projects. Dan always likes to call it the special projects and multimedia because it's spam then. I don't really appreciate that, so I'm going to make sure that multimedia is first. But I would say, to sum it up, what I do is any kind of technology-related projects, I consider myself basically a project manager for it. Mm-hmm. And I don't do any of the hard work. I just try to find people that can and make sure that they kind of keep up with things and put all of their talents to good use for the PC.
So when you say multimedia, are we talking about, so you work with GEMP, you work with... What else?
Yeah, so GEMP, I kind of make sure things are moving along with like Scomp Link Access and with the website. So any kind of thing that's like that doesn't really fall under social media. Social media is not really my thing.
Okay.
So like the forums, I do a lot of the forum management as well. And pretty much, I mean, if anyone has something that they're not really sure who to talk to about it, they can feel free to talk to me, and I can find the right person or maybe even solve the problem myself.
So do you do a lot of the work on like the Discord and stuff?
Yes.
Do you work? So you don't do Facebook, you're not Twitter, you're not Instagram. You are. Well, I know you have them, but I'm saying like from the PC standpoint, you're not associated really with those. So you are the person who you organize the teams for GEMP. You do all the Holotable. You do all those cool little nifty things. Like, do you run the website then?
I don't run it. No, we have a great web admin, Devin, now, who's done an amazing job the last probably about a year. And I coordinate with him on certain projects, and I have some updates later in the show we can talk about. So like I said, I don't do the hard work. I kind of just make sure that we have people that are talented and capable of doing it, and kind of just coordinate those. And you mentioned the Discord too. Like I've been plugging the Discord for a while. It's a great resource that I don't think like our gaming community uses as much as a lot of others do. So like that's a big thing that I think is pretty cool that I'd like to get more out there.
Well, I know we use the Discord when we stream, right now we're using Discord. So,
Yeah.
But I do agree. Here's another question. Do you run the Star Wars CCG Reddit? Are you involved in any with that?
No, not at all. That one is, I don't even know the mods for that.
Okay.
But I'm fine with that. Like, I think it's nice that we have these different, like, pockets all over the internet where there's just these fan-driven projects like the Reddit, and like, you know, I'm very happy to leave it to them. It's not something that I personally want to like take over with the PC. I think it's fantastic that there's a lot of community engagement with that kind of stuff.
And that's fair. Okay. So, who's next? Who wants to go next?
I got this.
I'll go.
Okay.
I think I called it. I'm Greg, the rules advocate. So probably the most visible thing I do is I'm answering rule questions from players. They post them right in the forums. People message me in all kinds of ways, Slack, Messenger, whatever, and I'll help people out with any questions they may have. But I'm also taking rule questions from other groups, like the design team may ask me, hey, we have this idea for a card, but how's it going to work in this situation? Or how's it going to interact with this other card that already exists? And I'll help iron that out and figure out, hey, you know, you're going to have an issue, but maybe if we just tweak it a little bit, then yeah, that issue goes away. And then the most difficult questions of all come from the GEMP team. They'll hit me with these crazy scenarios no one ever would have thought of, except it has to be accounted for in GEMP. So that's where some of the craziest rules issues get ironed out. Aside from answering questions, where the rules team updates the rule book, either to add new card rulings and errata, or update the rules themselves for two main reasons. One is, again, support the design team. Anything they want to do, we'll update the rule book accordingly to make it happen.
Okay.
And yeah, Chris likes that. Chris has crazy ideas, gears turning for me. Hit me with those anytime. And the other reason we'd be updating the rule book is typically if someone has discovered a catastrophic interaction that needs to be repaired. If Scott has dug up some card no one's looked at in 5 years and realized that it's broken. I actually love seeing that stuff and prefer not to mess with it. But if something really terrible comes up, you know, we've got to sometimes step in and make adjustments. Those are the main things that the rules team does.
And right now it's just it's yourself and two other individuals.
Yep, you may know them as Fungineer and Aglitz, or Fungineer being Steve Fulner and Aglitz being Tim Simon. They are both amazing team members to work with, so big shout out to them. And
I know Tim has been the rules advocate for what feels like eons now. My question is, like, so are you guys going to be expanding your numbers? Are you looking to expand? Like, how tough is it being a rules member of the rules team? Because I know there's Star Wars has insane rules that not everybody realizes. Like, I know the rule book is like this thick sometimes, but like, are you guys looking to expand? Like, are you looking for more members to help take the load off you guys? Or is it just
we haven't really found ourselves to be overloaded. And although there does exist a backlog of some old rule questions we still have to circle back to, it's been shrinking. We've been chewing our way through it. That's why sometimes you guys may see in the rules forum that I'll be posting rulings on things, and you're like, how obscure is this? Why is there an update to this card no one thinks or cares about? And it might be because someone asked a question 2 years ago and we never answered it. So yes, you may see weird things like that as we clear out this backlog.
So,
But we're doing good. So to answer your main question of do we need to grow the rules team, I think that we're in a really good spot.
okay. Let's go to Chris Kelly. He seems like he's bored up there in the corner. So, Chris, what do you do for design? Like, I know like I said, I know you handle a lot of the cards and everything, but there's more that you do.
I think the most of my time is spent basically chairing the design discussions as they go through cards. I'll move them into play testing. I'll stamp things, not stamp things. Basically, just trying to facilitate their conversations. Much like Matt, I let them do the hard work. They're smarter than me. They're more creative than me. And then I just try to move the process along. I'm kind of the voice. So when there's a CBT thread or something like that, I kind of speak for the design team once I kind of know where they're feeling about things, and then also deal with some of the production aspects, graphics, things like that. Greg was mentioning rules and proofing as well. We kind of go hand in hand with that. I actually feel bad for Greg kind of getting thrown into this. I know early on we had to add him to our Slack channel because we think of stupid questions we have. I remember one question was about the phrase rebel Jedi being immune to something. And I pinged Greg, and he answered right away. And then I'm like, "This is great," and I get excited. And then I realize the card's terrible that we're trying to make. So I'm just picturing Greg thinking, "What the hell are these kids up to?" So it's pretty much just chairing the design team's conversation, overseeing the PCD aspect of it, the player design cards, and graphics, proofing, and GEMP now is obviously pretty big, making sure they get the cards kind of early.
Yeah. And so, from the graphic standpoint, like, how hard is it to work with the graphics team right now? Because I know a lot, like, the graphics team's kind of split right now for those. They're mostly based in Europe. So, does that make an issue for you, or is
They're
it
great to work with. It's obviously challenging because of the time zone, but all the volunteers on that side, not just graphics, but proofing, GEMP, everyone's great to work with. I think everyone at that level really does care about the game and cares about the community. So yeah, there's difficulties in communication sometimes. That's why we have Slack. We have to have a Slack channel devoted to the production leads. Each team lead under design is represented on that channel. So it's difficult, but everyone's great to work with.
So really quick, this is actually going to be a question for you and Matt, because for those who don't know, Matt was the design advocate right before you. Jedi Jer asked this: how does it feel to be the most? How do I word this? Actually, no, this was Dorsch in the chat. You guys are pretty much the most vilified of the advocates as the design advocate. Like, does that make the job harder for you guys? I mean, I know you guys got to have thick skin.
Yeah, I mean, I've never thought it was like a vilification, but it's definitely a lot of pressure. And like when I was design advocate, I definitely felt that in a way that was like, not wanting to mess anything up, or so there's definitely a lot of pressure involved. But I mean, I never really felt personally attacked in any ways by comments of cards that came out or anything like that.
I mean, I don't know what everyone, if you know what I do for a living, but like I've had that type of like other pressure. I've had people say mean things about me, bad people. And so I kind of do have the thick skin. My first set as design lead, someone posted on the forums that I was ruining their life. So once I read that, pretty much everything else kind of just fell into place. I think much like Matt, like I'm not afraid of it. I think the design team as a whole is just so great to work with because we all bounce ideas off each other. We stand together, even if we disagree on how to handle one card, to the point where we're not afraid to fail. If you go up there thinking you're going to strike out, you're going to strike out. So I think we go in realizing we are a bunch of dorks who have jobs and families, and when we can, we try to put out a good product. And sometimes we miss, and I don't think anyone really feels shame in that anymore. So we have errata, and we have these aggressive tweak sets. So I'm really proud of the work we've done. So I mean, vilify. Tom Kelly, as soon as I got named design advocate, said, "I feel so bad for you, man, because from here on out, you will never be able to make a right decision." And it's you go in that perspective and you try your best. And
Yeah.
I think the community as a whole does appreciate what we're doing, even if they disagree with certain cards.
Okay.
See, I think from a stress standpoint, though, I think Chris Schoenthal and Greg Zinn have at times the most difficult, because think about it, we're at our top events, right? And something happens where, oh, there's a true tie that goes beyond all of the break points we put like we had, and we're talking to Chris, and it's like,
they felt pressure for
Hey,
that. They're
make-
the ones that
Well,
pressure.
Make
I-
Sabak great again. Let's play some Sabak.
yeah. So
I-
I mean, we think of that, or if Tom Haid, right? We're going to interview him maybe next month, but Tom Haid breaks a card in the middle of a big event, and it's like, well, what do we do? Do we work with Greg and Chris to stop it? So one of the problems is the design guys obviously day to day get killed, but then there's like our major events where just something happens and the stress level for those two goes to 1,000.
Yeah.
So that's, I just wanted to let you guys know that can lead them guys to have the most stress over like a weekend than anybody has.
And that's fair. Like, I can see like the stress level. It depends on like the weekend is up here, but then Chris is like I'm going to say CK and Show, so that way everybody knows the two Chris's, because unfortunately with this game there's so many freaking Chris's. We need a battle of the Chris. I know we had one kind of like with the NPC, but we need a bigger one. I will say this, like in regards to a player.
Bouncing off what Scott just said. Sorry, but just what Scott just said. There was a Worlds one year where someone was using Radis as a Rogue Squadron pilot, and I remember like they're calling Tim Simon over as rules advocate, and he came to me and he's like, "Is he a Rogue Squadron pilot?" And I was like, "He wasn't designed to be." He's like, "Well, he kind of is," and I was like, "That's your problem now." Now, like, cards made, you deal with it. So.
Well, speaking of cards like that, like if a player, I'm going to say this, if a player goes through the game and realizes something that's an interaction, let it happen for the tournament. Like, I understand, like, afterwards you go and correct it, but for that event, play it as it is. I mean, I'm just saying that's how a lot of games do it. But moving on, I mean, I'm not going to... Chris Gogolin posts out in the chat, my last stream, which was on Sunday, noticed there was 3 Chris's and a Jared playing. So, again, there's too many... I was going to say there's too many Jareds, but there's too many Chris's. But I say we move on to Jared, who is the newest of the advocates. He is our marketing advocate. Jared, what do you do from the marketing standpoint?
So what I do, so I would bucket marketing in 6 different categories, and that might sound like a lot, but it's not as much as design. If you look at the org chart has a ton of different things. But with marketing, there's social media, there's stream content creation, there's the donation system, there's prize support, of course, and then 2 things I call communications and then community building. And all of these fall in the umbrella of growing the game, expanding the reach, getting more people interested, especially known returning players, rewarding people for playing and for promoting the game, but also expanding our reach via the different media like Twitch streams and shows and programming and Twitter, obviously, and Facebook and Discord and all the different ways we can reach people. We have so many great members in this community and a lot of great members on the marketing team itself. And my job, I guess, would be to just make sure that we're moving projects forward, that people are happy with what they're doing, that they're keeping with the principles or the goals of the organization as well as the marketing team. So with those 6 kind of categories, I think that's me just trying to drive each of them from my perspective.
So, and that makes sense. Like, there's a lot that marketing entails. So, you have the job of getting out, like, making the game expand. So, I think you, as the marketing advocate, have the most challenge in the foreseeable future, because we have GEMP. The game has exploded on GEMP and everything, but at the same time, like, once we get off of COVID and we're all able to play in person, like, you got to think of like how to ways to make it grow from just having the usual 100 people just showing up at a tournament to all the people from GEMP showing up at a tournament.
Yeah, we're obviously in a very, very unprecedented time, and I almost feel like we're, what's the phrase, like powder keg. We've all been playing online for so often, but I think in a weird and interesting way, the game has grown a ton. Obviously, everyone's pretty aware of collector prices and the cost of cards, and people coming back to the game and all new Star Wars content, Mandalorian, all the different shows and movies. We're in a unique time where there's just a lot of people getting back in, and they're familiar with GEMP, and they can be like, oh, now I can play my Premier to Death Star 2 format, or I can play my No Shields format, and I can play against people at any time. I could play in the middle of the night if I'm up with my toddler who's not sleeping, or I could play with people in Europe, or it's just a really unique thing. And now I think that people are getting comfortable playing again. They then can go, we see the question a lot of, hey, I'm getting back to the game. What card should I buy? It's like, well, we have this luxury now of GEMP. Build a bunch of decks, play them a bunch of times, get familiar, and then get the cards or even borrow the cards you need to for when you actually have live events, like especially majors or local scene. But that's one of the areas as my kind of cross-functioning being on the tournament committee, the whole league structure. And that was something that I really enjoyed when I came back to the game, of going to the leagues with Scott and Chris, Chris CK up in like Boonton, and Chris Gogolin, and our whole local group, and being able to sit across the table and play with people. And then unfortunately we can't really, or haven't been able to do that as much. So that's where, starting up the league structure is a form of marketing. Hopefully pretty soon we can start going back into gaming stores and play and, see people that are like, just casual gamers who are, oh, wow, this game, I remember this game, or just completely no, exposure to the game before, and then they might start learning about it and picking it up. So hopefully these GEMP leagues start transitioning at some point to live events, and definitely next year, hopefully. But that's also, I think, under the whole marketing umbrella of growing the game, expanding it, building the player base.
So you've only been the marketing advocate for what, 2-3 months now. So in those 2-3 months, what would you say is the greatest challenge you've experienced being an advocate now? Has it been the player base, the team, or just working with these guys?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think in my role before, going back 6-8 months, working the Twitter account and helping out with various things, I think kind of segued into bigger things and just trying to manage them. Like the donation tier system, for example, that was something that I think we kicked it off the end of February, and that's going to be a challenge to get everything together and get it out to people. The prize support, we have a lot of stuff. I think I mentioned it today, actually, a couple posts. We have 2 items that were back in like November, December. They're going to be mailed out soon with the Road to Worlds and the Legend. But pretty soon we've had so many online events, and we've been in this unique time of people playing at events and earning prize support via online events, that batching all that together is a huge endeavor. But I think there's one initial lift here, and I think we have a lot of infrastructure in place that, depending how long we are doing more online events, we have the capacity to get stuff out to people. But then it'll be a bit of a reprieve when we go back to hopefully more, hey, there's nationals. Hey, here's all your foils and all your giveaways, and give it to the tournament director, and they give it out, rather than getting 60 people's addresses and making sure they're all current and that process. So, so that's one of the things that I think is a challenge now that I think should get different, and probably a little bit easier. But there's always people who have great ideas, even in the Slack chat. Like I know a couple of weeks ago, people were talking about images, and that's where we have the Star Wars CCG Ultimate Image Bracket going on right now in the Facebook group, where we just threw together 64 cards or 68 cards and people voting on them. And that type of engagement, I think we have over 3,200 members of the Facebook group. And that's why I thought that medium would be best, because it's just the biggest sample. But, the Twitter account's growing, Twitch is following, do all the great work that Dan's been doing, and the rest of the streamers. And, YouTube gets a lot more followers. So all that stuff together, it has been a challenge, but I know one of the team members mentioned, we get kind of stood up in the beginning and you do some of the initial lift, and then a lot of the stuff becomes a little bit easier, a little bit more of a downhill. You get the breeze behind your back in a lot of senses. So that's where I'm looking forward to.
Okay. And really quick, let's go hit up Scott. Scott, what do you do?
My job is actually pretty easy. I kind of oversee the organization. So let's say we got to get our taxes done, or we got to work with the attorney to get our documents updated. Whatever it is with that, I kind of handle. Work with, if there's internal questions. That's pretty much, looking at the day-to-day stuff. And then when I have extra time, I work to organize the MPC, for example. Hey, I'll go talk to the hotel. Or if I have some time with, I know about a year ago, we were working on a deck builder and it kind of stopped. And then we were able to get somebody involved maybe about 3 weeks ago, started working on stuff again. It's been, almost done again. So it's nice to see that stuff. And so I just help out where I can, right? That's pretty much it. I just kind of think of me as like a jack of all trades. If if Chris needs something, if whatever it is, I kind of jump on it and help out where I can.
Okay.
I want to second what Scott said about the deck builder, because the deck builder is something that I tried to do for a very long time and struggled to kind of like make good progress on it. And then Scott came in, and I mean, he's found some great people that are working on it and keeping that project moving. It's really exciting.
That's one of my that's one of the biggest things we wanted to have, was a deck builder that could have different versions. So let's say I go to this event and then I want to tweak it. You can look back at the deck and see version 1, version 2, version 3, and then we want to work with show and thaw. So when there's an event, it can lock the deck. It can be imported, exported. You're able to lock it for tournament deck checks. So we're trying to figure out a way to do that for the events, and that'll be nice when we can do that.
Okay. So I think right now I'm going to shift focus to some of the questions that people did ask. We had a few questions on the forums. I had a few questions in the chat that I want to
ask. We forgot to ask Chris.
I thought we did.
No.
Hey, you know what? I'm sorry. You had your little mute icon on, so I thought we talked about you. Let's talk to Chris first. What do you do? Wow, it's been a long. Wow,
rough.
Very.
I am I'm the tournament advocate, so I'm in charge of organized play, which encompasses leagues, states, regionals, nationals, events, and then obviously our majors, the World Championship and the NPC and stuff like that. And so I'm in charge of the tournament committee, who I'm not going to try and name all of them because there's too many of them, but they're a great group of people who give me lots of good opinions and feedback on potential ideas for different events, things like that are happening in the game. And obviously, this last year has been a bit of a challenge from a tournament perspective, since we can't meet in person. But things are looking up, so we're hoping to be back on track. And obviously, in some ways, it's been a blessing because we wouldn't have had all these awesome GEMP events. We wouldn't have had the biggest world we've ever had, essentially. Things like that. So that's me.
And so you mentioned that there's been challenges with GEMP. What were some of the challenges? Because I know, like for example, Robbie came up and said he wanted to run Texas Mini Worlds. We have Batmouse who comes up and run the GEMP PC. Jared put together the Retro League. And then we also have like the NPC from last year. We had Worlds. We're in the middle of the NPC now, and again we have the OCS. So, would you say it's easier with GEMP, harder with GEMP? Would you rather be in person?
Very different. I think there's two kind of angles I would point to. The first has been kind of the technological challenges, which Matt and also Adam have helped out a lot with, in terms of getting GEMP to the point where we can have a tournament that is that has integrity and that is run smoothly, while still being worthwhile to play in. So things like being able to get the commentators into a game where they can see hands and stuff like that, but not allowing obviously other people into the game. Things like setting up different leagues, things like that. They've been great at getting those things going, and whatever asks we've had of them, they've been able to help out. And so I think we're at a pretty good point from that perspective. The other perspective I would say is more logistical in terms of making sure that we don't overload the players with events, because obviously the presence of GEMP allows us to have these events whenever we want, and we want to make sure that people are interested in them and that we're providing a product that people want to play in and have reasons to play in, while not kind of making them feel like we're force feeding them, if you will.
Okay.
Actually, I want to add one more thing, because we've had a lot of interesting conversations, I think, with the online tournaments, and there's so many rules that you need to think about for online events that aren't relevant in person. And so there've been a lot of conversations about like how to handle that in an online event. And it's been interesting, just like you think about like the clocks, for instance. It's just completely different than how it functions in real life. And so you need to write tournament rules that account for almost every corner case. And it's a real challenge, I think, but it's definitely,
Yeah.
like you said, it's different than in real life.
And on the plus side, we have some benefits like the deck checks. Instead of having to lay out 60 cards and then like check their list and see if there's misspellings, it's literally Adam checks them against the database and says, "Yep, that's the same list they're playing. Everything's good," and we move on with our lives in like 10 seconds. It's amazing.
10 seconds for us.
Jemp is
A little bit more for Adam.
judge too.
Yeah.
Sure.
Dan, even with like me, for example, my game last weekend just stopped in the middle of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris has to come in and kind of talk to us and say, well, if this was real world, right, the game doesn't stop. I mean, that doesn't happen. So Chris has to figure out the technology side. Okay, why did this happen? Can it be fixed? If it can't, let's come up with a solution. Can we move on to game two with a solution, or do we need to restart? And that's, again, there's that stress, right? Because it's a real quick decision that he has to kind of take the feedback and then make a gut decision based on everything he had, and it worked out great, so it was fine.
Yeah, and I will say, like, with the whole GIMP and everything, there are a lot of issues that don't come into play normally. Say, I'm playing in a tournament on GIMP, and oh no, my power goes out. You guys have to quickly, well, first of all, you guys have to figure out what's going on with the player, because you're down in San Diego, I'm up on the Central Coast. We're not in the same room as each other, so you got to figure quickly what's going on, from that standpoint, and then you got to come to a consensus between yourselves and the other player. So, has that experienced? I mean, like how is it how big of a challenge is it for you guys?
I mean, I think like Scott said, it's something that's almost in certain ways the most similar aspect to in person, because things come up in person too that we have to make quick decisions on and kind of have a quick dialogue between the team members and then get back to the players, so we don't disrupt 60 players for the benefit of two. And so I think that it hasn't been too much of a problem with GEMP. We haven't had any super major issues like that. Scott's game was one that I can think of, and then there were a couple early on when we started doing the online events that we kind of had to be like, oh, this scenario hadn't really been considered before, so we need to figure out how that's going to work going forward. But I think we've kind of got a good baseline now, and I think things so far, at least from my perspective, have been running very smoothly.
Yeah, and it seems like I know there was an issue last year with the NPC where a player was watching on stream when they were involved, and
there
were some questions and everything
that they kind of weren't really aware of.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, oh, the stream is switching and it's now on my screen, and so that's something with the NPC we're in now that we kind of tried to. We're working on the rule set constantly, because presumably, even when we go back to paper, we're going to be interested in having online events because they're great for different reasons. They're people from all over the world can play against each other when normally that's not feasible. So I don't want people to think that we're going back to all paper events and we're only going to have the 4 majors and we're never going to touch GEMP again, because that's not the case.
Yeah.
But things like that, we're kind of learning as we go, and so that was a learning experience for us. And so we tried a different method in terms of rules for people watching the stream this time. And when the event's over, we'll gather feedback on that and revise it further and go from there.
Okay. Really quick, this is a personal question for you, Chris. How long have you been growing the beard?
I had my last haircut like March of last year. So it's been a minute. My hair is the longest it's been since high school.
Wow.
So that's exciting. But then I got my second dose a couple weeks ago, so I have a haircut scheduled for Friday, and it'll all be gone. I can't wait.
Even the beard?
Oh yeah, starting over. Got to start fresh. Post-pandemic times.
Post-pandemic times. Okay.
I remember when you shaved it last time. I think you posted a picture, so I was excited.
Yeah.
So
there will be pictures again. Yeah.
Okay, so I asked this earlier, like if the teams and everything are starting to look for volunteers. It was asked in the chat, what are there teams that are currently looking? Are there teams that need volunteers? Or they all need help and everything? I know we always say that playtesters are probably the biggest need, and we always try to recruit playtesters. But besides that, do you guys need help?
I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah, especially graphics. We need a lot of help in that. And I don't want to speak for Matt, but GEMP coding is a thankless job and a job that not many people understand. So certainly, need help, in those areas.
Anyone that knows any programming language, please reach out to me. I mean, there's probably something we can find no matter what language you code in.
Do you speak Bocce?
I don't.
And anyone who's good with graphics, also reach out to Matt.
Yeah, and well, so when you're,
I get so many DMs. That's the worst way to contact me.
So here's my question. So okay, when you say, Chris, when you say graphics, are you talking graphics for the cards? Are you talking like the Facebook banners, or what are you saying specifically? Because there are your graphics are for the cards, whereas Jared's working with the social media aspects. Are we looking for two different people to work, or why don't we just have a set graphics that does everything? Like, why should there be two different groups of graphics?
I believe Jared has access to the graphics forum in general, and he can, and I think he probably has asked them for certain things and banners. But from my needs, it's more the cards. I obviously don't want to step on Jared's toes.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could just say something, when we say graphics, right, we need people come to us and then we kind of figure out what their best need is, right? So if they're good at, whatever it is, 3D modeling, well, obviously we're not going to have them do a banner. We're going to help them design a, Slave 1 or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, because we could use some of the images. Like, if we have a 3D model, why not throw it on a banner? Like, I mean, I know we have the great Slave 1 and the Ghost 1. Are we looking at getting some more banners in the near future?
I know when we've worked in the past, Dan, you and I, and I've asked you to get those. I think, long term, we'll figure out what areas. I think it's better to have banners in different regions instead of having
I think that's one of the things. I just want. Okay, so that's something you and I can talk about over the show. But I do agree with you. That was something I wanted to bring up. But again, that's something for after the show. But yes, we're going to work on banners for in the social reason, because I know, like with the Indoor Grand Prix, you can, with the background banner for the streamers and everything, specifically says it has the Indoor Grand Prix logo on it, so you can't use that at Worlds.
It's also worth noting that what Jeremy said in chat is true, that like graphic design needs for marketing are very different than graphic design needs for building the actual image on a card and trying to do the PDF and putting the cards together.
Well, I will say, I know the graphics team has made leaps and bounds with what they're doing, so maybe we'll try and get them on to answer some of the questions on what we need. I'd love to have Kevin on just to talk about graphics and stuff. And I think is it Kevin who's in charge of graphics?
Tomas is technically the lead, but obviously what Kevin does, is great. They're both amazing, talented people. Just the needs of design has grown with all the new media, the Mandalorian show, and all that. Our needs are kind of growing our organization, so we need help. And
I know one of the things that working on graphics, and we're talking about this, is the need for cosplayers, 3D models, because we're really trying to get creative with a lot of the images. So
there's no truth to the rumor that I said Jared could design a Canto Bite objective if he dresses as the Master Codebreaker.
Wait, which Jared?
Jared Konsker. That is not true.
I don't know. I've heard that rumor, but I don't know. Okay, so here's a question from the forums. Matt, what type of special projects are you going to have coming up? Because I will say this, our good friend Joker King posted actually a lot of questions on the forum, so I'm going to touch upon his questions here over the next few.
I prepped for a lot of the questions. I'm glad that people gave some questions on the forum to let me see ahead of time. I think we already talked about the deck builder that Scott's been working with. The other big thing that I am most excited for is an SSO that we're setting up, and it's something that we haven't had somebody with the right skill set to do it. But it's
What
basically
is that
going
in
to,
English?
and SSO is like a single sign-on. So I was getting there. Everyone's going to be able to go to one landing page to log in to all of the websites in StarWarsCCG.org. So that's going to include GIMP and the forums and the new deck builder site and the main website. If anyone has like a WordPress login for any of the volunteers, that kind of stuff is all going to go to one login. So that means
Okay.
your GIMP account is going to be tied to your forum account. And right now, I think a lot of people realize there's like different username and password requirements for these different platforms. And sometimes your browser will get mad at you and it's going to think like, okay, well, you're on StarWarsCCG.org, so we want this password, but it's actually taking the forum password and trying to put it in GIMP, and then it gets you locked out. And then there's the store involved. So like there's so many of these kind of issues that are going to be solved by an SSO, and Devin has been working really hard on it. He gave me a big rundown of some of the key points with this, and it's going to help a lot with us, like with moderation, with account management, because right now you know that if you lose your password for GIMP, then there's no way to get it reset other than to contact me. And I ask like certain questions about like the decks that you have in GIMP, because it's the only identifying information we have is your deck list that you have in GIMP. So it's going to solve all these problems. I'm very excited for it. It's still a work in progress though, but definitely I think it should be done in the next 12 months.
Okay. This was a question in the chat. Currently, right now, actually, there's a little bit of a discussion on the Slack channel with regards to active judging. How do you guys feel about that? And being that we're going to be eventually be coming back into real life events, is that something that we're going to look to establish at events?
It feels like a question for me.
Well, I would say you and Greg.
Yeah, sure. I'm certainly open to hear other people's opinions on it. I would say that my perspective is that judging is kind of a two-pronged thing. It needs to be as fair as possible in terms of lack of bias, things like that. But it also needs to be as equitable as possible in that it's not ideal for instance, if we're playing a top four and it's Scott and I and Jared and Chris, not that I would ever make a top four unless it was a 4-person tournament. But if we only have one judge, it's not ideal for that one judge to be focused on one game where that an error could be caught that would make that game fair, but then the other game's not. But then the other perspective for that argument is it's a net good regardless of how many errors are caught. Like if any errors are caught, it's a good thing, even if it's not perfect for everybody around. So that's a constant back and forth, and I'm not entirely sure where I stand on it, but it's kind of a balancing act, right? Where we have to figure out how to make it fair for everybody, but also the best experience for everybody. And so much like some of the rules I talked about earlier, that's a constantly evolving thing that we've had going for the past couple of years that we've had different takes on. And obviously for the last year, it hasn't been an issue at all because the GEMP does all the judging for you. I don't have to get involved at all. But once we get back into paper, it's definitely something we're going to consider again. And I'm always open to hearing feedback on things like that. So my PM box and email are available for that.
Okay. And I know that there's been events where, say, issues have come up on the stream, and people who are watching at home and as well as the commentators have said, no, that doesn't work this way. Are you guys going to take that into consideration as well?
Sure.
Like,
I mean, that's definitely part of the argument, right? Is it an advantage to be a stream game or a disadvantage? How do we kind of make that a more even playing field? And I know you had talked during the NPC broadcast about having multiple games streamed when we get back into live events, and I think that would be a huge advantage for that. I don't think it's too big of a problem to have something that's seen on stream and stop the game and say, hey, somebody caught this. But it also, it's more that balancing act. Like there's so many more eyes on a streamed game than there are on a non-streamed game. Like what's the fairness level there?
Well, I know. I was going to say because I know one of these came up during like a top four. So there was a judge watching, and I saw like there was a misinterpretation of a rule or something, and people on the stream as well as the commentators noticed it, but the judge missed it. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Like if a judge misses it, and then literally everybody who's watching from home was like, "No, that's you know."
Exactly.
You know, one thing I want to mention too, right? Because Chris changed the streaming rules, Chris Schoenthal for this weekend. And in some ways, I looked at myself because Chris Kelly was my second round opponent, and he didn't watch my game, so it didn't matter. But I was playing Never Tell Me the Odds in my light deck. And who knows if somebody tells him, right? That's where you run into the trick of it's better to have more information though, because at the end of the day, I'm not really worried about it because it still is going to force him to make decisions, but having it, being on the stream game, right, can lead to issues. But at the same time, having that information out there is better than not, right? Because there's people watching at home. And I think that's a tough decision for Schoenthal to make, back when we started doing this. But it's better to have that information out there than it's not.
Yeah, and that's similar issues have come up with the question of whether or not we should give the commentators, the people like Dan, the deck lists of the players involved, because sometimes you don't want the commentators saying, "Oh, well, he's got a Hujix in his deck or whatever. He's going to play around it. Maybe he has that in his hand, things like that, or he's got 3 of this card versus 4, and you can see he's already used 2 of them, or things like that, where that's kind of potentially a disadvantage for the streamed game, that there's additional knowledge, and it's never going to be perfect, and it's always kind of going to be a sliding scale. So these are things that we're just constantly discussing and debating. So there's no right answer on either side.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do another question from Joker King, because again, so Chris, so this is going to be the first. So set for 15 is working on something new. We're looking at a design pods. So he wants to know, how is the design pods? How are they working so far? And do we have any, can you give us a sneak peek or two?
There are 4 active design pods, all acting independently, save for, I believe, 1 person is in 2 of the pods. They're going well, especially considering there's people that they're great volunteers, but they're being kind of thrust into the design realm, so they're still kind of like learning, that trade. So it's going well. I think it's slowed down a little bit, just as things normally do right before majors. There's less GEM programming going on because people are testing for the major. There's less play testing going on because people are testing for the major. So I hope that we'll have a kind of a spurt of energy after the NPC. But I'm really excited because the ideas that they're talking about and the perspectives they're bringing forward are great, and everyone is working together great. That's in the design pod. So I'm really excited about it. Obviously, the proof will be in the pudding when it comes out. One design pod just gelled very quickly, and their product is already in playtesting, and they've already revised it. And after the NPC, the second round will be put into playtesting, and the other pods are also working really well together as well. I'm excited about it.
So here's a question: how did people volunteer to be in the design pods? Because I know if going forward in set 15 is a huge success, I know people are going to be chomping at the bits to get into these design pods so they can work on stuff that they want to or they're interested in.
It's actually a pretty large undertaking. It might not seem like it at first, but especially for my workload, it's kind of tripled my workload. So it's a very large undertaking to do the design pods, because now all of a sudden I'm working with a bunch of different groups rather than just the standard D&D team. So for the time being, we just limited it to play testers, under the theory that while plenty of people I'm sure would be great designers, the playtesters have already been involved in the design process to a certain extent. They also understand things will change. A lot of times spoilers will leak out and the community will be like, this card's broken. Well, we know
Yeah.
it is, but we want it tested because we want to see what works with it and what doesn't work with it, and how does it impact other things. So the playtesters kind of have that knowledge. So for now, it was just limited to playtesting. There will come a point in time once the design pod process gets rolled out, and quite frankly, when I'm more familiar with it and what to expect with it, we'll open it up to other volunteers and other members of the community.
Okay, that's fair. Jared, this one's going to be for you. Again, this is a Joker King question, so you guys could like go hit him up really quick because these are all Joker King. I mean, dude's on the ball. Jared, so over a little bit, there's been an lack of communication per se regarding the prizes and their delivery. So how are you going to work or streamlining this process so that way again people can get their prizes through the mail as well as in person?
Yeah. So even just today, I just, like I said a little earlier, there were 2 prizes that were getting a little overdue and made me antsy and were definitely causing me some stress. So fortunately, we have them. They're the final piece of the 2020 donor package, which is the oversized legend objectives and the Road to Worlds events with the stamp 25. That was Taco Bill's baby, and that was his prize-supported idea as well. So we have them.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to package them with other foils that we have. The key is printing these and printing all these foil slips and other things is an endeavor.
Yeah.
But totally understand that the transparency on the process should improve, can improve. In the next week or two, I'm going to be giving a broader update to the whole community on where all the prize support stands. I know because all these things are logged. We had, the Gem PC kicked off in the middle of January. We had Jawas in Love. We have some foils for those events. We have a couple mugs for for the Gem PC, the retro event. So to some extent, we want to try to batch these, and of course, understanding that communicating, timeline and managing expectations is a really important part of this process. So look out in the next week or two, 2 weeks at most, for a little more update. But again, as I touched upon, we're in this unique time frame where a lot of these events are online, so a lot of prize support's online. People all across the globe. We have made a couple improvements to try to help, for lack of a better word, the supply chain really of getting foils through Europe with EU considerations and Brexit, and getting things to some of our Australian players. All of this is pieces of the process, and making sure that people get their physical prize support, their items, and also their foils. And one key thing I want to say too is we had that survey back in November and people gave their input on prize support. So I just want to say a lot of that was recognized. We understand certain things that people like more than others. So we're going to be adapting for those. I also, like I said, am looking forward to live events where there's a lot less shipping involved. We can kind of give all the items to a couple people and make 1 or 2 shipments instead of 54 nationals. Yeah. So I think a little more transparency is definitely coming, and you guys are going to start getting packages. And do me a favor, when you get your packages, with a Facebook group, they call it Mail Day. Take pictures of all the cool stuff because
I was
you're
going
probably
to say
going to get some people like Timo. I'm going to need a huge all the prize support he's accrued. I think he's topped, and Brett Pickle's got a ton, and Surson's got a ton. But this is what we want. We want to encourage people to play, reward them, incentivize them for playing, and as a thank you for being active players. And again, all this ties into promoting the game, and the best way to promote the game is to play it and talk about it.
Okay, so this is going to be for all of you. This past year, we've had some. I'm going to word this as nice as I can because I know this is Joker King. In the recent activity on the forums, GAMP, there's been some consternations within the community. What do you guys envision the PC doing to help alleviate some of these issues?
More specific, I know the one item that Joker King mentioned before was, sometimes we have some crazy people in the Gem chat.
Yeah.
Hopefully that SSO creates a little more accountability for people. So I know that was one item. I know, and this was one of the questions I saw in the string of what advocate would you least want to trade places with. I would definitely least want to trade with Chris Kelly, because everyone has their own ideas for design. This game is so complex, and everyone has their own idea of what's best, what's ideal. So that's where I think the word vilify was thrown out, but people always want the game to be, as they view it. So that's one of the consternations of design. I know Chris hears that, and in the last couple months, there's been a lot of changes and updates to CBT and design process, which are pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm not sure the specific instances Joker King was asking about either, but I think, it has been like a kind of a difficult, I would say, like 6 months or so, with a lot of kind of issues that have come up on the forums and other parts of our community. But I think the important thing to me is that we just try to keep building a positive community, and to, things might get testy sometimes, but the important thing is that, we as a community are welcoming, and that we can kind of, we don't always stay on topic, and that's, one of the things that was talked about. But I'm part of a few other gaming communities online that they really go out of their way to make sure that it is I keep saying positive and welcoming, but those are like the two simplest ways to put it. We just want to be a place where people are comfortable coming to talk about the game, to talk with their friends, to just kind of hang out virtually. And I think whatever we do, I think, to me, it's just important that we, maintain this area being a place that people enjoy coming to on a daily basis, and not have to stress about like what kind of drama is going on in the day. And Jared mentioned the SSO as well, and that's going to fix like a lot of the moderation stuff, because we've had some people acting up in the game chat, and it'll fix that kind of stuff too. So, I take it very seriously that we stay in a community that is able to talk about things in a civil manner. So, yeah, that's always on my mind. If there's something that comes up, I always try to focus on the positives of it.
Yeah, and I know there has been a lot of issues on the forums on GAMP, and I know you guys try to keep a positive community. It kind of can, people's opinions do spill over, so it is hard to keep everybody positive and focus on the game. I think I want to say you guys are doing a really good job, and I do mean it. I know you guys are have the best intentions and everything. It is really hard. Like, I know I'm a part of a plethora of other communities as well, and when people get sensitive about topics, it can get a little heated. So as long as everybody works towards remembering that this is a game, and that I think it should be good. Moving on. Let's see. Here's a fun question. Kendall Hallman. Out of all of you, including Keith, again, he's not here, which one of you is the devil's advocate?
In like a literal sense? Like, which one of us is sort of like the ombudsman, so to speak?
Good question.
What do you guys think? I don't know.
I'm not answering that question.
I assume it's
What was
Scott.
the question?
Which one of you is the devil's advocate?
Oh, the devil's advocate. I'm usually the devil's advocate, because I'll bring up stuff that's like,
Ooh.
hey guys, I just basically
He does. He absolutely does.
I bring up things that really don't make sense, but I bring them up because it's important to know it doesn't make sense. Because I'm in my little bubble, and I'll look and I'll say stuff like, hey, wouldn't it be great to do this? And they're like, no, that's not a good idea. So
I'll say this for Scott. He's definitely an out-of-the-box thinker when it comes to his ideas. So, like, if I wake up tomorrow and there's a message in the advocate forum from Scott that's just like, hey, what would you guys think if we built a Star Wars PC moon base? I'd be like, yeah, that sounds like something Scott would ask about.
Yeah,
like,
I could see that.
I'll
too.
give you an
surprise me
example.
At all.
Oh, here we go.
I had a great idea that we should design a new side of the cards, right? We've got light side and dark side. I was like, what if we made an independent side? And they're like, and I'm like, it's great. We could do this, we could do that. And they're like, well, you've already got aliens that are kind of independent. And I was like, yeah, I guess. But for some reason, I was thinking of the purple magic April Fool's Day joke.
You know what?
25 years ago, and I thought that might be a good idea. Let's make a third
I just see Chris just cringing in the corner right now, like you are ripping the soul out of his body.
No, it just and so many of Scott's ideas are so great that we make them into April Fools.
Yeah.
Well, we're lucky we can't see Greg right now because he's probably cringing more than Chris is. Because imagine having a third faction and rewriting the rulebook for that.
No thanks.
I think you'll have more fun designing about 1,000 cards to bring it up to speed with the existing sides.
Well, I mean, why don't you have the independent side work for both sides? They can go in both decks, like an independent land out.
Our round's going to have to be 3 games now, and everybody has to play all 3 sides.
Listen,
You know what? Let's move on.
Everybody has ideas, right? And that's the thing is, it's better to have an idea. What is it? It's you miss all the shots you don't take, Michael Scott or whatever it is.
I think the biggest difference between Scott and the rest of us is that Scott says his ideas out loud, and we stop ourselves before we get there.
That's fair. I like how Scott has envisions that no idea is a bad idea.
Sometimes that's very healthy, and I guarantee, I mean, I don't have any specific examples, but I'm sure that there has been a lot of stuff that some of us might have been like, I'm not even going to ask that question, but Scott asked it, and we're like, we talk about it, and then we're like, hey, actually, this kind of thing might work. So it doesn't hurt to ask.
So I'm going to combine 2 questions that were posted on the forums. Sam Tashima and Joe Olson asked these questions, and I'm going to combine them. Sam basically asked, in the next few years, what do you think you guys are going to do to make the game better, and how would you measure it? And Joe asked, how long do you feel like you're going to be in your current position? You guys can start with whoever you want.
Yeah, so I would say one of the items, some of you guys may know I'm an accountant, so I like numbers and metrics and things growing, like see the reach of the different groups that we have and the different media. So something I started about 7-8 months ago was just starting to keep a log of how many followers do we have on Twitter, how many followers do we have on YouTube, how many followers do we have on Twitch, and just tracking all that and seeing how it's changing month to month and saying, oh, this month we had a lot of people join Facebook. This month we had a lot of Twitter. This month we didn't have a lot of new Twitter followers. So, just analyzing that stuff, I think, is a way to look back and be like, is our reach improving? It's pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I did when I first first got into this role was I made this long, boring post that I use the term, again, probably being a little overly corporate, but like key performance indicators and just things that I wanted our team and different groups to kind of keep asking themselves of, like, for example, the donation program. We have over twice the amount raised so far in 2 months than we had last year, which is awesome. The community seems to be very happy and excited to contribute to the different mission and initiatives that we have. So that's one indicator. One thing I like to look at too is the primers and tutorials forum. And I know Matt Lutz is doing a great job, and Ryan Serson too, to just try to grow that up, because so often we'll see, hey, I wanted to play this deck, what should I look at? So there's plenty of different quantifiable things. I know that from my perspective, I can look at and see, like, again, like web page articles. Like we have our homepage. I try to do a good job of having relevant items on there so people don't go to the homepage and be like, this last news article was a couple months ago. So just trying to keep those things in, the quantity of those, and again, with that corporate comment I made of, like, I know a lot of folks, as you guys in your professions, you set goals, you try to reach the goals, you check them off, and a lot of times the feedback is, this is too flowery of a goal, put some way to measure it. So that's where I try to hold myself, and I want to hold our team to certain standards of, that's a great idea, but how do we know if it's working, or how do we know if this is good or bad, or we might feel like it's a good thing, but is it really having an impact? And those are the things that I would look to measure from a marketing perspective. But hopefully, to answer one of the other questions, I think it was Joe asked it. Hopefully I'm in this role for a few years. Hopefully I don't get kicked out before then. But as long as I'm doing a good job and I'm happy, and everyone else, hopefully I don't get the boot.
Who wants to go next?
So can you restate the question, because Jared's was really long, and I want to make sure I'm not saying it a bad thing. I just
So again, Joe, Sam asked, how are you guys going to measure the success of the PC over the next few years? And how long do you envision yourself being in the position that you are? That was asked by Joe Olson.
Say that one more time. Sorry.
How are you going to measure the success of the PC?
Okay. Well, so I'll kind of cover that. So, how do I look at it from my standpoint? My standpoint is we haven't been shut down. My standpoint is that we get the taxes taken care of, that we've got money in the bank to cover the bills, that we're in the good graces with the legal community, um, and that our players are happy, right? I hate the stress of anything negative, right? I don't like that stuff. So at the end of the day, I want things to be moving smoothly, and I want our community members to be doing well, whether it's, somebody getting a new house, having a baby, just having successes. That's the idea behind it.
Okay, that's a good way of envisioning. Let's go with show and thaw.
So from my perspective, I think the tournament scene is kind of always evolving in terms of. I don't know that we ever get to a point where everything's exactly as we want it. Like I talked about with the rules and things, we're constantly iterating and changing, and then situations change, like we had this year. So I don't know if there's a great way to measure, like to have measurable goals as much, because things like tournament attendance are very imperfect from a measurement standpoint, because there's a lot of reasons people won't attend a tournament. It's not just because the tournament is good or bad. It's because the date was a week off from when they had their vacation, or they suddenly will be having a baby, or they don't happen to like the meta at that time, or things like that. So to me, it's just making sure that the players are engaged and enjoying themselves at events, and that the events are being run in a consistent and fair manner. So that's kind of how I view my position from a metric standpoint, I guess. In terms of the second question about how long, I don't necessarily have an answer as the second longest to Scott in my position, which is crazy for me to say. It blows my mind that I've been doing this for so long. But I'm still happy being an advocate, and I love it, and I love being able to serve the community. But that said, I know that at some point there's certain, there's people that have other ideas that kind of want to changing of the guard, and if that happens, I'm open to that too. So if somebody wants my job, come fight me, I guess is what I'm saying.
And I think when you think about it, right?
But not literally.
I don't think it's
You're scary.
not a fair question, but people are doing what they do, and I don't think they really plan on leaving or not leaving or changing. It just kind of happens, so that nobody really knows, right?
Yeah.
And that's fair. Chris, Matt, or Greg? Which one wants to go next?
I could go. I like to think of the different content creation that people can do and contributions to the PC in general, or just like to the game, not even just to the PC. Like, because to me, like I love to see it when people step up and say like, "Hey, I want to do this cool thing with the game. Can I do it?" And I'm like, "Yes. What do you need to do it?" And the more people that we have, that to me is a sign of success. If we have people wanting to step up to run an event, if we have someone that wants to build a new app to do things, or like what Eric did with the new interface for GIMP, those kind of things that are just kind of passion projects, so that someone says, I want to do something for the game. Can I do it? The answer is always yes. And the answer is usually like, what can I do to help you? Because to me, like the more contributions we have in any way, someone mentioned the primers that Ryan and Matt Lutz have been writing, like that kind of stuff too, that counts too. Like that kind of content, the more you have of this variety of things, to me, that is a big sign of success for the game.
Can I do a real quick plug on what Matt's saying about contributions with the retro event? So we have a top 8, and I think this might be a good opportunity. Obviously we have Dan and the rest of the stream team did great work this past weekend, and will continue to do great work. But I know we've had a couple people reach out to me on the Twitter account who play a lot of other games and are interested in streaming a game. Or there's going to be 7 matches. Just a call out there, if you're a player who's inactive or you used to play a long time ago, I'm thinking of people maybe like Mike Gem or Johnny Chu, who premiered a Death Star 2 format. You might not need to be completely in practice on, but I think that'd be kind of neat. If anybody is friends with people like that who might enjoy jumping on Discord and calling a game, that I think would be a pretty neat thing for the retro event top 8, especially because there's a lot of OGs on there. We have Desai and Bastion and Joe and Hayes, and the rest of the top 8. I think it's gonna be really neat. So just maybe a shameless plug for that event would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that event's a great example. Like how many people signed up for that. People that really weren't playing in major events with a PC, and it was it's probably, I think, our most successful alternate format event we've run in almost 20 years. I mean, right, Scott?
It's also an example of how the times change and how circumstances will affect what people want. So for years, people have been not a lot of people, but people have been asking on the forums oh, hey, are we going to do a retro event? Are we going to do this? And the problem with doing a retro event in paper is you have to kind of learn a whole different meta, and then you still have to find all the cards for this different deck that you're going to build. And when we're having paper events regularly, and when people are preparing for a major, and then there's a little gap, and then there's another major that they want to go to, and then Chris puts out a new set, and then there's, it's a constant flow of new stuff, to where it's difficult to insert into that a paper event that's a totally different format than what everybody else is doing. But what Jemp has brought us is this ability to say, hey, if there's a market for this, we'll run it. If there's people that want to do a no V cards event or a no shields event, sure, why not? We can put it on Jemp. It's not a cost to us. It's not a cost to the players, because they don't have to take the time to dig through their boxes and find the cards to make these wacky decks. Other than Scott, who has a pile of Wookiee wins on his desk, I'm sure. But I think the technology has been a great advancement there, and I think that's probably a great place to look going forward. Is people are enjoying this event, and it's gotten great numbers, which is awesome. But it would be a difficult event to fit into a paper calendar, and so I think the marriage of paper and online is gonna pay dividends going forward for people who want to just try out different formats.
And that's my goal with working with Matt, to have the deck building site, right? The deck builder. So that if you're having this format, hey, here's 100 decks that'll work in that format that you can use as inspiration.
Yeah, and hopefully
or even there's an easy way to search, hey, is this card legal in this specific format? Because you can do that too.
Yeah. And it'd be great when the deck builder is done to kind of use it as an archive. People could put these old historical decks on there from World Championships in the 90s and things like that, so that it's kind of like a good resource for all of that. So then when people want to hold some other kind of retro event, we all want to hold another Operative World event, Operative Worlds. I mean, everyone's itching to do that. We'll have all of those operative decks up there that you could just kind of have a look at and easily copy them. Hopefully, as Scott was talking about, import, export straight into Gem. So
love it.
We could give it a catchy name too. People have their decks, and then they have certain tech cards they play in there. Maybe deck tech or something. We can use.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we can work on the title. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I like that one.
We have that URL actually.
Yeah. Moving on. So, Chris, this is going to be a question for you. These were actually PM'd to me. Since you became the...
Which one?
Sorry? Did I...
Which Chris?
You didn't use your show and CK nomenclature.
CK. These were PM'd to me. So since you've been the design advocate, people have noticed in particular that a lot of the power creep is essentially real. That a lot of the power and so the decks and a lot of cards have had to been errata a lot. We've errated Shadows of the Empire twice. Hitco received erratas right after Worlds, and a lot of the cards have been lost, had it been errata. We've had how many erratas for a while? But yeah, so do you anticipating doing that further, and do you think that we're going to continue with the current theme of like the power creep increasing?
I think we're going to do whatever we have to do to make the game fun and exciting. A lot of the errata wasn't necessarily of recent cards, and Hiko wasn't errata because it was overpowered. The numbers, the stats, the facts were that it was a 50% win deck. It was errata because people complained. So we ultimately we do want to serve the community, make them happy. There's a certain section of the community that the only thing they're ever going to do is complain. And there's certain section of the community that the only thing they're going to do is love the game. So there's certainly a middle ground. Yeah. We try to discount the 5 people who are going to complain no matter what, and then we try to also discount the 5 people who are going to be happy no matter what, and then try to find a middle ground. So is there going to be a trend? We're going to do whatever we have to do to make the game fun. Going back to the prior question as far as how we're going to measure success, fun. If people are having fun, then I'm happy. I remember the Agents of Black Sun Worlds. It dominated the meta, but what did we do about it? I spent all of day 2 asking people, what would you do? What would you do? Not just people on design, not just people, the advocates, but the players. So I certainly know when we get back to real life events, I love that interaction. I love just that Saturday night dinner of, what do you like about the game? What would you do differently? And just getting all the perspectives of the players face to face, not through the internet with all the snark and everything, but face to face, talking, interacting with community members that we have so much in common with. I was really happy with that world, because even though it was dominated by Black Sun, I got a lot of great feedback. So I think that as long as the game's fun and power creep, schmower creep, if it's going to make the game fun, I don't care. We're going to do it. And if we're going to swing and miss, we'll change it. We'll errata it. We're not scared to take risks. We're not scared to make the game go where it has to go. As far as how long I'm going to do this, obviously I think I owe Scott that answer first, and D&D, they're like my brother, so I'd certainly tell them first. But I guess whenever we run out of leeway is when we do what we got to do.
Okay. One further question. So there have been cards that have received erratas. Are you willing to go back and get rid of some of the erratas of the cards that have received erratas, essentially killing the decks? Or are we going to make helper cards to help out certain decks?
Are you on Marco Polo right now?
No. No, I'm actually talking to Connor Britton.
Have the Marco Polo channel tweet out, we're going to do what it takes to make the game have fun. IE was not a beloved deck to play against, and it had a very, very, very repetitive play pattern, which was something that we were trying to attack.
Okay.
Does that mean it will receive a helper card? It can now. It couldn't before. So are we going to unerrata? If it makes the game fun, of course. But I don't think it's the view of D&D that, i.e., grabbing 2 admirals, setting up an admiral's order at a non-battleground, and then pulling all the combat vehicles with your forfeit 6 or 8 Imperials was really a fun thing for the game.
Yeah, that's fair. Let me get this one last question in. This is going to be from Connor. Are there any current outreach efforts to bring new players to the game? Are there any tools or even a kind of GEMP tutorial in the works to help teach newcomers how to play? I guess this is like a question that is directly to Matt Carulli, leader of GEMP, as well as anybody else who wants to touch upon it.
There is a GEMP tutorial.
There's already exist some GEMP tutorials and some sample decks that are in there. I'm actually a part of a lot of different Discords, some that are Star Wars CCG specific, some that are not. And I'm always trying to kind of like reach out to people there and see, if there's anything that they don't, get or understand about the open game or about GEMP. And I've pointed some people to like some of the sample decks and things like that before, and I answer a lot of the rules questions and try to just, bring people in that way. And I think historically, like before there was like such a prevalence of online Star Wars CCG, you had all of these people playing kitchen table games, and now those people are moving their kitchen table games to GEMP, which I think is like naturally bringing more people back. And we've seen this over the last year, and how many more people have been like, hey, I used to play this game when I was younger, and I still have my cards, and and now I can't believe it's still online. So like, I think there's partially some marketing outreach as well that Jared could talk about, like with getting people in. But I think the people are out there, and we see like all these other organizations and discords, like Covenant Store in Tulsa. I know they have like a huge following online. Chris Kelly can maybe talk about them. They bring in so much more awareness, and then they give a shout out and say, like, hey, like the PC's still here, like you can play on GEMP here, and that kind of word of mouth I think is really big for getting more people back to the game.
Okay, really quick. Let's do one last question. This is going to be a fun one, really quick. Going to shotgun it. I want quick answers. Favorite card, least favorite card. Chris, CK, go.
Favorite card, least favorite card's Grimtosh and Monarch.
Okay.
Favorite card, I don't know. Clash of Sabers, I really like. I don't know.
Show it though. Show.
Sorry, did you say me?
Yeah.
Favorite card, Ellison Hinthra. Least favorite card, probably coarse and rough and irritating. That name is just real bad.
Which one?
Whatever the new justice, coarse and rough and irritating.
Oh yeah. That's fair. Jared.
Favorite is Protector, and least favorite is definitely Close Call V.
Matt.
Favorite, I think some people already know this, is Stun Blaster. Don't even care which side. It's amazing. And least favorite, I'm going to go with the Imbalance combo.
Okay. Scott?
Yeah, I think my least favorite card is Walkling.
Non-virtual?
No, the virtual version. I think my favorite card is probably... I do really like Wookiee Kiss still. It's so useful.
Okay. Greg?
My favorite has always been You May Start Your Landings from the day it came out. And my least favorite is the virtual escape pod. It just makes no sense. It's an escape pod and it's like doing Digirak stuff. I don't get it.
And I know this might, I don't think anybody really cares, but I'm just going to say it really quick. My favorite card is Queen Amidala. My least favorite card is Visage. I hate losing cards.
My favorite card actually is Walkling V. Now that Scott said it,
that's fair. Okay, let's go over a quick few minute last things. Real quick, again, the retro event is still going. We have until the 30th. Got a bunch of players who it looks like a bunch of people have finished their games, and the top 8's looking really solid. Like, again, I know Jared put on a great event, and he said that we talked a little bit about it, like a lot of old school players, Justin Desai. I'm not sure who Steve Buss is. They're both 10-0. Hayes, Joe Olson, Zutton. I'm not sure who Zutton is. Bastion, Casey, and again, I'm not sure who Dark Deal is, but the top 8 right now is looking really solid. And again, this might change just based on people getting those last-minute games in. So, Kurt, Bob,
everyone play your game, and
Tarkin84 are still undefeated. So, the match.
I recognize a couple of those screen names from back in the day. I remember.
Yeah, Wayne 6-0 as well.
Yeah. The NPC, the Final Four, will be this Saturday, starting at noon Eastern. Joe Olson, Chris Goglin, Chris Worfs, and Jared Napolitano all in our top 4. So congrats, guys. It's going to be a pretty solid top 4. Like, really good. And we touched upon a little bit. We got a little bit, again, we touched upon this really briefly. Our next live event, hopefully there's going to be Nationals in July. And kind of awesome that this happened to me. Baron Sonneteer fell, BSF. Played me in a open match recently where he had 19 aliens in a win. It was his agent in the court versus my court deck, so he thoroughly stomped me. So again, if you want to enter for the April Deck Building Challenge, you've got till Friday. We'll have next week. We'll introduce the new one as well as the winner of this month. So, are you gentlemen ready? Because you're going to work as a team on this one.
Oh,
It is time for your lore challenge.
All right. No cheating,
Ready.
guys.
Okay. Team lore challenge. You have to be 100% on this one. And if you guys win, you guys will have something awesome that I'm going to make for each of you. It's going to be, those the 11 by 17 uncut sheets.
Breakfast.
I'm going to make you each one personalized, and it's going to be just of each of you. So
now which way does this go? Are we guessing the lore, or are we
I'm
guessing
going to give
card
you the
and tell
lore.
us
You give me the
Okay.
card. Are you guys ready? And just because I want each of you to, I'm going to want you guys to each close your Discord. If you're watching on Twitch, please close it, because I'm going to show the viewers the answer.
Oh, hold
Okay.
on then.
Let me
All right,
minimize
do that.
my.
Minimize. No
Close.
cheating.
Okay. No cheating.
One card.
Your lore challenge is leader.
Oh.
So
that's
it's a virtual
It's a
card.
virtual card.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's not a virtual.
I would guess Poe Dameron, just because he is a leader and he's a male. so he
Again,
wouldn't say
you have to
female.
have all of them to hit this one.
Kylo.
Oh,
got it.
Yes.
cards that are
Yes.
just leader?
Yes,
Oh,
and I
wow.
did say that you have to hit 100%, or it does not
No,
count.
All of the cards that just say leader.
Do we get a
Yes.
target number?
You know what? I'll give you the number.
It's like 26.
14.
17.
14.
14. All right.
Yep,
Oh,
all
14.
14. You get to work as a team.
Poe Dameron.
Admiral
Poe
Radish.
Dameron, I got one.
Okay.
Admiral
Yep.
Radis.
Yep, that's
Radis probably said.
no,
Yeah, Radis.
no,
Radis is not a leader.
no.
Radis said Mon
Oh,
Calamari.
Radis probably has a species. Probably says Mon Cal.
So, yeah,
Wait a
that's
second.
definitely-
Are we allowed to just throw out names here?
Yeah, you can
What
throw.
about
You have
the
to. You have.
admiral that we had to errata because he had the wrong name.
PV.
PV.
Yeah, PV. Yeah.
Two.
Okay, so he probably says that too.
Two.
It has to be a male human
Admiral
leader.
Radis is not a leader.
Two.
No,
Is
it's not
there
that he's
a-
not a leader. It's just that his lore has more than just leader in it.
Yep.
It has
Is
to be
Solo
exactly
a leader? No,
Yes, it has
Solo's
to be,
not a
be a
leader.
male human leader.
Solo's also a smuggler, so it's not Solo.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Solo.
I have a feeling it like a non-virtual like Leia, the Jedi Pack Leia.
No, she has a lore.
Is she okay?
Tarkin.
Name text.
Tarkin is leader.
Yeah, but there's no virtual version.
Remember, there's
There's
14. I want all 14.
Yeah, there's.
What?
I'll be
Yeah,
honest
there's
with you.
14. But he said
There's
13.
no way in heck I can do this.
What about General
Can we get to
Nevar?
5?
General Nevar.
You know, I'll make it.
yeah.
Okay, you know what? How about this? Time out. If you guys get half, 7 of them, you guys
Yeah,
win.
good luck. Okay, we'll try.
Does Trench have a species?
We
Yes.
can just throw, we can just
He
throw
does have
names out.
species?
You can just
Okay.
say, is Trench one of them? Yes or no? Apparently, Dan's just telling us if we get one.
So here's the thing: 3 misses and you guys lose. Starting now.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
goodness.
So we know it's Poe.
3 strikes.
Poe is
We know
good.
it's
You
all-
got
we
you
got
guys.
Poe,
You guys got
we got
PV and you
PV.
guys got Poe.
Poe and PV.
PV. PV.
That's 2. That's 2. I said 2.
They keep
You need
throwing-
5 more.
Does
Oh,
does
four.
Snoke have his species? Do we know what species Snoke is?
No, we don't.
No,
we don't
that-
have species on him.
So Snoke.
3.
Oh, nailed it.
3. 4 more.
Kylo Ren.
5. That's 4. Correct.
Kylo Ren with lightsaber.
That's 5. That's
Kylo, I said that.
that's 5.
Oh, Chris Kelly killing it.
Actually, yeah.
Did we make any of the?
About
I
Hux.
guess Enfys Nest would be a female, right? That probably
Right.
would.
Inquisitors. Were any of the Inquisitors leaders?
Inquisitors, I think, might have their species, but Hux.
Hux, yeah.
6.
Just
Hux.
6.
Yeah.
So we just need one
Chris,
more.
if you get all 14, I'll give you another special prize.
Ooh.
Even better. This is going to be a secret prize, but you're on
No,
the
I don't think
verge.
We can do it. All right. So what are the ones that we have?
So you have PV, Hux, Kylo Ren with lightsaber, Poe Dameron, and Supreme Leader Snoke.
There's got to be another resistance.
Yeah.
What's the
What
new
about
guy?
A lot of them are
They're
female though, so
all
they
the
don't
reason
count.
people are
Admiral
female.
Statura.
What?
What about,
Statura, isn't it?
Which one?
Admiral Statura.
7.
Hey, I might have another one. What Lord Santeca?
No.
Yeah, Lord's not a leader.
That's the first miss, though. I'm going to count this as your first
All right,
miss.
well, we already got 7. So
Yeah, you got your 7. Do you want to go for the 14?
No.
no.
No?
There's no way.
No?
I don't think we're getting much past that unless there's one that has like 5.
We're gonna
Wait, so let me double check, though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, you guys got to your 7. Would you like to know the rest of them?
Absolutely.
Yeah, lay it on us.
Allegiant General Pride,
That's who I was thinking.
Oh, that jerk.
Darth Vader, Emperor's Enforcer.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you guys would really get that
Shame on
one.
me.
Huh?
Shame on me for not getting that one.
Shame on all of you.
Yeah.
General Leia.
No, she says female. No.
No, she does not.
Yeah,
I get
Oh.
because
Oh,
she's
Craig,
female by
can we get on
rule.
that?
She
Where's
counts.
Greg at?
She,
They are ruling.
She looks like a female. She is a female.
Thanks, Greg.
It's not by picture. It's
Merrick
because it's
Steele.
in,
Oh, he's good.
Mon Calamari Admiral. Palpatine, Emperor Returned.
Oh.
Saw Gerrera.
That's good. That's a good list. We got. I'm proud.
I'm
we
happy
got
that
half.
you know what I'm actually surprised you guys got half. But then again, considering Chris designed most of these, you guys did have an unfair advantage. Okay, so
Good Kelly.
I will get you guys your prizes again. All 6, all 7 of you guys get this. So I'm gonna make a nice little prize for you, and I'll show it next week.
Thank you.
So congrats, guys.
Cool.
Well, you know what? I've had you guys on for over an hour at this point. It's been an hour and a half. I mean, yeah, it was a jam-packed and filled episode, but you know what? I think it was a good episode. So
Yeah,
again,
thanks for having us.
I'm going to thank all 6 of the current advocates, as well as Keith Brown, for giving up theirs Wednesday nights to answer your questions and to lay out some transparency. Next week, barring, I've had 3 confirmations out of the 4 that one of the NPC winner will be able to come on to the show. If Joe Olson wins, unfortunately, he's traveling back from Cabo, so he's currently in Mexico sitting drinking some margaritas. So Chris Gogolin.
He's playing the NPC from Cabo? My
Yeah,
goodness.
he's playing in the NPC in Cabo. So if
He's not going to win anyway.
if Jared,
Wow.
Chris Gogolin, or Chris Worf wins, either one of those 3 will be on. If not, we'll have Joe on the following week. So again, like I said, Jared, Chris, and Chris all confirmed that they will be on. So we'll see who wants to come on, and good luck to the 4 of you guys. Until then, I'll see everybody Saturday at noon Eastern, 9 p.m. on the Better Coast. Until then, as always, I'm Dan Tartaglione, and everybody have a good night.
Thanks, Dan.